Sometimes I'll talk about Niri, maybe some Sway, maybe some Hyperland, maybe some of these smaller options out there, but basically nobody ever talks about Weston, a lightweight and functional Wayland compositor. In the past, it did call itself the reference Wayland implementation. Why did the image just load? The reference Wayland implementation, that phrasing is not in the README anymore, but it is still used in the documentation for Weston itself. Frankly, it doesn't really fit that role anymore, as it doesn't actually implement most of the interesting Wayland protocols. Also, most people aren't actually building a Wayland compositor library or a Wayland compositor from scratch, and if you are, there is things like Sway out there, and Sway is a much more complete reference. And then if you're building on something like WL Roots, something like a tiny WL, for instance, or maybe a DWL is a much better reference. Obviously, the GitHub is archived here, but the Codeberg is more up to date. Now, the reason why we are talking about this is due to a recent Collabora blog. Weston 15.0 is here. Lua shells, Vulkan rendering, and a smoother display stack. Now, most of the stuff that was added with 15, I don't really care about. The Vulkan stuff is very cool to see. Having Vulkan there is nice. Random side tangent about Vulkan, if you want to go down a fun route, there's this, like, weird subset of the Minecraft community that really don't like that Minecraft is switching over to Vulkan. And it's like, oh my god, my 13-year-old laptop is not going to be able to play Minecraft anymore, and it probably couldn't really play it anyway. Just wanted to bring that up. I'm not going to do a video on that. Vulkan is obviously the better way to do things, and we're seeing a lot of things integrating Vulkan. Also, if you want access to OpenGL APIs, there is Zinc, which is running OpenGL on top of Vulkan, so you can still write OpenGL code, even with a system that only does Vulkan. If you want to go and test that, obviously, you need Vulkan hardware, which is anything released in, like, the past bit over a decade, even the cheapest of the cheap, even your integrated graphics. Just go and run Weston --renderer equals Vulkan, and you can go and play around with that. You're probably going to notice absolutely no difference, but that's how you do so. The part I want to talk about, though, is the Lua shell. A sought-after feature is the introduction of a new shell called the Lua shell. As the name stands, this includes the ability to customize window management and create shells written in the Lua programming language. Create shells as in bars and notifications and other things that when you have a desktop environment, you just have. If you run a window manager, you gotta, like, piece together or use something like a dank material shell or make something from scratch with a quick shell or straight up from scratch by just writing it yourself. Whereas Kiosk Shell has been great for those special purpose limited use cases, Lua Shell gives people the flexibility to make their window management completely configurable without having to maintain whole piles of C. To better exemplify how this works, we have included with this Weston 15 release a simple tiling shell which has been added in the configuration INI for Lua Shell to execute. That looks a little something like this. It is a very basic tile. It doesn't have gaps, doesn't have window blur, doesn't have all of this nice sort of stuff, but it is a tiling environment built with Weston. If you have Weston 15 installed, this can be accessed with Weston --shell equals Lua. We encourage users to use that as a starting point and further expand on it when writing new shells. This is really cool. You could already basically do so if you forked Weston, wrote a bunch of additional C code, and made it into its own project, but that's a lot of work, and most regular people are not going to want to do that. And Weston does have a user base. Weston, like, people do use Weston. It's entirely possible that you've actually used Weston and had no idea you were using it, because for the most part, it's used in a professional embedded setting. It's used for kiosks, like the kiosk shell would imply. It's used for car displays and other things where, yes, it is running Linux, yes, it is running Wayland, yes, it is running Weston, but you don't need to know that. Weston in the past wasn't really that approachable for the average everyday Linux user. Now, this serves as a really cool baseline for the average person to go and build something on, or for a fork to take place. The Lua shell I think really changes everything. At least it would if it was in the documentation. Now, this is a problem that Weston does have, and another one of the reasons why it's not very approachable. The documentation is kind of not great, or in some cases with the Lua shell, not documented. But let's think about this in the abstract. Think about what this enables people to go and build and not have to go and build themselves. What is another Linux project that offers a Lua shell? Something that people have tried and wanted to bring to Wayland and just haven't been able to do so. That project is AwesomeWM. AwesomeWM is a really popular window manager on X11. It took DWM, it added a bunch of stuff to it, it added a Lua shell for configuration, and a lot of people, this is the thing that is keeping them on X11, and as such, people have tried to bring this model over to Wayland. It's just a lot of work. But here you have something which does a core part of what you need, the Lua configuration shell. Now, I don't know of anyone that is working on something with this because this was literally just like announced, what, a day or so ago. However, I am very curious to see what people do with it, especially if they want to go and like fully fork the Weston project, because Weston does have issues, right? It is missing a lot of the protocols that people want because it's not WRoot. WRoot is kind of like the baseline for building something good on Weston. Things like Smithy have basically done everything that WRoots has done. The thing that Hyperland is using, that I'm blanking on the name on, that forked off of WRoots, also has a lot of the same support. KDE has a lot of the same support. Weston is kind of more in line with where GNOME is, which makes sense for a desktop environment. Doesn't make sense entirely to build something on top of it. Personally, I am happy on Neri. I like Hyperland as well. I have options that fill the niche that I want from my system. But for somebody who doesn't, for somebody who really, really wants that awesome WM experience, maybe this is going to be the route you get it. Maybe this is the way you do so. It's not going to be exactly the same. It's not going to be perfect, but I want to see what can be done with it. Right now, with the only documentation being the code itself and any like function signatures you see, it's in a weird state to actually go and start a project like that. But when there is more there, when there actually is proper documentation, I want to see what people can do. And if somebody does something really cool, let me know about it, and I'll definitely have to talk about it. I've heard some mumbles of some awesome WM-like projects being worked on, but nothing kind of concrete. So right now, there's just not a good choice. Honestly, I would say the closest alternative to AwesomeWM, it's not really close, but close as in the way you work with it, is Qtile. Qtile isn't using Lua, this is using Python, but you can configure everything with that programming language, configure it on the fly, and do all this good stuff. Now, to be fair, and this information might be out of date, I have heard the Wayland side of Qtile isn't great. Maybe that has changed since I last heard about it, but I don't really hear that much talk about Qtile nowadays. It's not really a popular point of discussion, unlike it was, 3 or 4 years ago. Now, am I going to run Weston? Probably not. Am I going to run a Qtile? Probably not. I'm going to keep using Neri. I like Neri, but I do like there being cool things available out there for people who want to go and try them. So, go and try them. Play around with Weston. See if you like it. You very well might not, but it is there to play around with. Anyway, if you liked the video, go like the video, go subscribe as well. If you really liked the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon subscribers, Stelly Berapay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and Easton? Nah, that doesn't work.